Guys, have you heard about the new movement towards better habits? Because it's being led by the sponsor of today's video, Fume. I'm not going to give you a hard time for having a bad habit. We've all got bad habits, but what if I could tell you there was an alternative that would help you kick that bad habit? Fume is an award-winning flavored air device that draws flavor to your mouth, not to your lungs. It's a great way to satisfy your fixation with non-toxic flavors, free from nicotine or vapor, and it's safe to use anywhere. My favorite flavor is crisp mint. It's refreshing and it's satisfying, and it doesn't come with any of the harmful effects that you would associate with some of those other less guilt-free devices. Fume fills the void when you're trying to ditch a bad habit, and it's backed by doctors throughout the U.S. Fume has already helped over 300,000 people develop better habits. I encourage you to try the Journey Pack today, and if you use my code Chael, you will get a free Fume topper, which is an awesome accessory that's going to help to level up your experience. Go to tryfume.com/Chael, or scan the QR code on the screen. Who should Dricus have called out? That's more complicated than you might think. Dricus was in the ring with Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira is the biggest star in the sport. Alex Pereira sells more pay-per-views than Jon Jones. Conor McGregor is not licensed. Sean O'Malley will have his say when he's back. Those two have volleyed that back and forth. And so if you're in Dricus' spot, how do you not call out the biggest star? Not to mention the biggest star is standing there. Not to mention the biggest star can protect his damn self. I mean, you're not being a bully calling somebody out. You're not even being a cyber bully. You call out Alex Pereira to Alex Pereira's face in a cage. You're a straight up badass. So, is that what he should have done? And we could have had a moment. See, it changes things. Like when Ilya Topuria calls out Islam, that's fun, but it's a cyber attack. They're not in the same room. If Dricus was to call out Alex to his face while Alex is in the cage, 2 world champions in one cage, I mean, not for nothing. I will admit, we could have had a very special moment, and it's not like Pereira would have let it slide. So, I will concede. I will concede that because of the visual, but let me talk to you, let's talk the psychology. Let's not talk the one great shot visual moment. Thank you, son. The psychology of it. Okay. I want to rework this that Pereira is not there, but it's still Alex Pereira. Is it worth calling him out? No. And you got something there. You did something. There's a ballsy moment. It's not a bad moment, but it wasn't worth it, no. Anybody that calls anybody out who is openly and known to be under contract, you're going to get what you deserve, which is nothing. And you're going to get made to look like you're looking for a hot moment, a headline, and that you are not sincere. And it would have been all of that times 2, right? If Dricus would have called out Alex is undersigned public contract to face Ankalaev. And Dricus would also find himself in an interesting spot because it is so blatantly clear that his next fight is with Khamzat Chimaev. That if Dricus, even while looking for a special moment, made a suggestion that a fight in a different weight class gets broken up so that he can test the waters, or that he doesn't have to do some very heavy lifting against a disastrous of a matchup in Chimaev, it doesn't quite work. And if you want to have some fun, if you want to, like, finding out how dumb fighters isn't hard to do. They will talk about legacy. I don't believe 9 out of 10 of them could spell the word legacy, but I do know for sure 10 out of 10 could not define it. or at least would not define it the same. So it's a weird thing when fighters start talking about it, but when you're talking about legacy, you're just talking about how are you going to be remembered? How are you going to be remembered when you're no longer there? That's all. That's your legacy. So the more of a time period you can cover, it's so important. Like Jon Jones is chasing something that Jon Jones, I don't think he understands. If, to my understanding, Randy Couture at 42 years old was the oldest heavyweight champion of all time. I know when Jon Jones won the strap, he became the youngest of all time. Mike Tyson had the youngest champion of all time. Where you end the debate is if you can book into that. If Jon Jones, who, by the way, that's only another 5 years, and I know that sounds like a lot of time, but it's not. If Jon Jones bookends, meaning he's the youngest champion of all time and he's the oldest champion of all time, the argument goes away. That is how he will be remembered, and that is called a legacy. So, but the period of time that you can cover the spread, it's one of the things that make the current greatest of all time is Georges St-Pierre, but amongst other reasons, he covered the spread. He beat all the guys of yesterday, he beat all the guys of his time, and then guys that he beat went on and they won the next generation. So once George was gone for years, and guys that he beat were beating everybody else. So I tell you this because perception being reality. You want to know who Dricus should have considered calling out? And I'm going to tell you Bo Nickal. But I want you to hear the why. First off, that's a really hard match. Second off, Bo is the youngest guy if you look at the roster that you believe will go on to be the world champion. Not just that he could. If you're betting your house and you got to pick the right guy, that's who you would pick. And when you do that in conjunction to the age, you see the relevance of Bo, but he can't get that fight. Right? And generally it'd be somebody like Bo calling for Dricus, and then Dricus acts like, oh, get ranked in the top 5. Generally, that is why it would be so wild and compelling. The UFC is following this new policy, which is ridiculous in the first place, because it gives so much credit to our rankings committee, of which lacks integrity. But they're not going to put a number 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10 into a world championship fight, which is where Dricus is so clean. Dricus' hands are completely clean. Nobody calls out Bo Nickal. And while Dricus couldn't get that fight, he would create that perception. He would create the perception of sit down and shut your mouth. And do not forget the tie-in. Dricus' entire reason he got onto a main card of a pay-per-view standing across from Darren Till 3 days before that fight, it wasn't main card. That was never going to be main card. Dricus got that spot because Bo Nickal got hurt, and Dricus called for the spot. He said that new guy debuting should not have that position here. That's my position. So when the opportunity opened, they gave it to him. So don't think for a second that Dricus and Bo aren't connected. They're completely connected. And it's a very interesting call out, because see, when I talk about what Georges St-Pierre did, beat yesteryear, beat current year, beat the future year, a lot of that is just the way the matches get made. There's not necessarily something you could do to control that. So you could change that perception, though. See, Dricus has beaten everybody of today. He has proven he is the absolute best, but he could extend that. He could extend that perception and make it reality if he starts extending down a guy that's going to come along in 7 and 8 and 10 years from now. He would have been completely clean. He never would have got it. He'd have been the only one to do it. It would have added to the legacy. Now, I've had some time to think about this. I don't hate what Dricus did. But if you're going to call for somebody that you can't get because your next match is already set, there's no point in going to the next best thing or the next most reasonable thing. Turn that tool. You got the hold of the right tool, but you got it right the wrong end. Turn that son of a bitch upside down. Break it down from the other side. And if Dricus would have called out Bo, particularly years from now, that would have been a very
cool call out.